And welcome everyone.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for we had some technical difficulties literally at the final moments before stream.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. There was a big boom that happened over here at my house, not too far away from my home, and turns out that one of the power, I guess a transformer or something, went out. We have a bunch of rain and storms coming through right now, and everything went dark. We were actually online together chatting about the episode, and then suddenly everything went offline.
Yeah.
And I checked my notifications just on my phone signal, and turns out that we had a big outage that happened. So, and we're back up. So
yes, we're back. We relied on some mobile power just to make sure everything was back up and running, just in case, on our Instagram. So if you're following us on Instagram, you got a little bit of an extra stream. We were just painting. You were painting Batman on the Instagram, and I was just kind of continuing what I was doing from there.
Yeah, I was finishing a piece that I started on the Comic-Con Africa live episode yesterday. We had one that was scheduled to go yesterday afternoon, and
yes,
it was a lot of fun. Got to hang out with the guys and do fun stuff.
That one is I remember when we first started that, I was just like, okay, I guess we're just gonna do this like once or something, and didn't really know what was gonna
turned into our favorite one.
Yeah, and it just kind of turned into it was kind of the catalyst for us doing this too, because we were doing that before.
Yeah, in a way,
Pro started.
Yeah. It was definitely a ton of fun, and then they had to go on a hiatus for a little bit. For whatever, I don't even know why.
I think what it was is just because so many artists were going back to shows. Near the end of 2021, and they're just like, well, we're just going to let the artists be artists and do their thing.
Too many cancellations for...
Yeah, it was like too many cancellations, Yeah, we none of us would have said, a bunch of us would have said no, but it would have been really tight and cramped, and we would have been like in between shows, and it would have been tough. So
makes sense.
But yeah, I think that was part of the reason. Jamie Jones, yo, glad I'm able to catch you on for a little bit. Thank you so much, Jamie Jones.
I appreciate it, bud. How's everything been with you?
I
mean, I know we've chatted, but
no, it was good. I'm prepping for a little convention season, and I'm also finalizing everything for a series of online classes that I'll be producing with a company called Domestika. And so there's it's a lot more. If anyone's familiar with Domestika, they do a variety of specifically creative instructional videos by experts in the field, right? And so they go out and find people that they think would do a good job, like teaching something in art
on the educational aspect.
An educational aspect of things. And they met me at New York Comic-Con last year, and we've been talking, and I will be doing a series for them. So that's exciting, but at the same time, I have to be prepped because there's a lot more people involved in the production of this than I am used to. Right, I'm used to going into a classroom where it's just me, or if it's a panel, it's it's just I can wing it. It's solo. I go on Twitch, and it's much more casual. But this has a lot more
moving parts.
Prep if you wanted to make sure you want to make sure you're more diligent, so no one feels like they're wasting time when you get into the studio.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
It's sort of like a cooking show. You you prep things ahead of time so that, I mean, we dabbled with a little bit of that in some of our earlier stuff where we did a little bit of, pre-done stuff before we started the episode. And depending upon the subject matter, we do that, but ours is a little bit more informal here. So
like surprisingly, this YouTube stream is us being formal.
Yeah. I know.
the Instagram is like completely informal. This one we at least have 5 minutes of conversation minimum.
Yeah.
There's honestly a little bit more behind the scenes, but
So going into that, this particular episode is all about storytelling.
Yes.
Be it telling a story in a single image or telling it in a series of images, i.e. sequential art, like comics or storyboards or anything of that nature. With covers, you're telling a story in a single image. You're trying to convey and entice someone to open it up, but you're also giving them a bit of a preview, maybe. Mm-hmm. It depends on the cover, really. With anything that's sequential, you're relying on multiple images on a single page to push a story forward, and it's a much larger storyline usually.
Right.
The images
you're
usually
taking a little
accompanied
snapshot
by text, but not always. Yeah. So it depends on the type of storytelling you're doing. Have you ever done storyboards for anybody?
I have. I did some storyboards for a game trailer a few years ago, but the game never. Yeah. But the game event died in production.
That's pretty typical. Yeah.
The one I did was actually pretty. It was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Because it was for when all the VR stuff started happening, so they wanted to have someone watching a trailer or someone watching a video game intro while they can move their head around, right? So they can see it and so I had to think of the storyboard instead of just a flat 16:9 aspect ratio. It was a set. They can move their head all the way to the left, keep it in the middle, keep it to the right, and look up. And so all of that had to be interesting.
Yeah.
And so, that was definitely a challenge to kind of keep the story. It was something I've never done since, but it was definitely an experience in trying to figure that stuff out.
Did you enjoy it, or was it something that
I enjoyed it?
Like, I'm not doing
it. I enjoyed it in its challenge. But also the fledgling game company that I ended up doing it for also couldn't really answer a lot of my technical questions that I had about it. Like, okay, I know you gave me this script, but what does what else can you tell me about it besides what's in the script? Because I have to visualize.
Cool story, bro. Needs more planning.
It needs more fleshing out, and it was new to them too. They were like, "Oh no, we this is the scene. Like that scene only takes place in this middle part. Like what happens if they look left? What happens if they're looking right?
Yeah.
Like,
that stuff's hard.
It is.
I've done stuff for video games as well, and I haven't done storyboarding for games. Bizarrely, I've done mostly concept stuff, where you're doing like 15,000 versions of the same, whatever, or you're designing a background, and they're weighing in on multiple different backgrounds, and let's use this one, and everything you worked on was scrapped, or yours was the one chosen, and 35 others were scrapped, and it's always. I got really soured by the gaming industry pretty quickly from a artistic standpoint, just because it felt like there was so much lost art. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it was art created to just be tossed away.
Right. Like no one outside the company would see it. It wouldn't be used. It wasn't used anywhere.
Yeah. And there was a lot of it that happened that way. So yeah, I don't know. I did stuff for flying games and just different things like that. It was fun. It was fun because it was like something really different than most of the other work that I was doing, but at the same time, just not for me. I've also done storyboards though for films. Most of them were pilots or things like that that either didn't happen or they happened for a very tiny audience of people.
Yeah.
And then never went on to bigger things. There's a whole lot of people who do a lot of that kind of stuff where it's almost speculative. The production company pays you to do, like a whole series of storyboards, and it either comes to light or it doesn't come to light, depending on
it's
how
almost
the pilot
part
was
right.
received. Yeah,
Right.
the pilot,
it's almost part of the pitching.
Exactly.
Process.
So yeah, I've done a lot of those. I'm trying to think of other things I've done that were similar, that was storytelling oriented. I've made comics that were specifically for pitching movies and TV. And that stuff was interesting. It was basically taking all the principles of comic book storytelling, but you were trying to keep everything in a widescreen orientation. So it's more like multiple. It's almost like storyboards, but it wasn't quite
with word balloons.
Storyboards actually show movement, and
Yeah.
this didn't really show movement.
The thing with storyboards, right?
It was forcing the story faster. Storyboards are usually an entire scene, and you're literally doing every camera movement that the camera will see. So it's much more involved and intensive. You basically can look through an entire, and the reason they call them boards is usually you put them on a massive board, and all of your little tiny strip images are kind of laid out, and you literally can look through everything and watch all the movement that happens in what could happen on film.
Yeah.
And it's intense.
I mean, you're taking into account every camera movement, the movement of the characters within it. So it's not you're just capturing a static photo or a snapshot. You're like, this is the snapshot, but here's everything that's moving in it. Cameras panning in, zooming out, panning across. This person's going across this way. This explosion's happening there. So on one hand, you don't have to be as specific, but you have to keep track of a lot more things that are happening.
It's legitimately pretty stressful because you're doing so many illustrations and so quickly, because they don't really have time. Like, they give you the assignment, and then you've got a short period of time to block out a particular scene, and it can be very stressful. I definitely, like, I think I've tried just about every type of illustration art and storytelling, at some point. And that one was probably the most grueling. It was the one that I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely not for me. And I know I had friends who were flying out to LA to become storyboard artists. And I was like, yeah, that's all you. After my first foray into it, I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is definitely not my career path. I don't want to do this. It sounds glamorous. It is so not glamorous to me. But,
I mean, if you can't show any of it off.
Well, a lot of times, that's the stuff that they put in the art of sort of books. And like
but there's so much more that even gets shown off in the art of, like.
Yep. No, there's a lot that gets tossed. Yeah.
Like 80-90% of what what you and I do probably is able to be shown at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you hope at least
1% of what they do gets in front of the public.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a challenge, and I think it's you learn a lot if you ever try to do it. Put it that way.
Yes, that's definitely true.
You know,
I think that's true of most of the, like, I feel like everyone should dabble a little bit and play with the different types of art storytelling that's out there, because it
yeah.
lets you appreciate all the other moving parts.
Hmm.
Um, like I kind of feel that way about comics in general. The first thing
Yeah,
I
our
tell
advice is,
anybody,
you want to do a comic, just make it.
yeah, make it. Yep.
Do it.
Like, it's literally the best way to know, A, whether you have the fortitude to do it, and B, whether you actually want to do it at all.
Right.
Because a lot of times you have this idea of what that's going to be like, and then when you get into it, you're like, wow, that sucked.
Right.
Like everything I wanted to do is not that.
Right. Or it just doesn't. You can't do it as a comic. Some ideas are just not.
That's true.
You know.
I had one project with a writer that was a writer who's he's kind of a big deal now, and I did a project with him, and he ended up canning the project halfway into it, and I was kind of taken aback when it happened. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He's like, I hate to say it, but I don't think this is actually geared for this. He's like, I think this is actually supposed to be something different, like a movie or something. I don't think this is actually designed to be a comic. And I respected that. That's actually, like, I'd rather hear that than let's spend all of the time going down this road and just to learn that you're really not into it. Yeah.
Or something interactive, like a video game, or you know, something like that.
There's different medias out there.
There's tons of that.
So, yeah. What is your favorite sort of storytelling like vehicle? I mean, do you like, is films your like penultimate? Is that the one where you're just like, yeah, that's the end all?
I have.
I feel like with comics, like, I feel like comics has this sort of chip on their shoulder, because they see film as the end all.
Right.
And then you have the purists in comics who are like, no,
it's its own unique mechanism.
Yeah, it's like chicken or the egg, you know, which one came first? But I feel like there's every comic writer is always thinking about how it's going to look on film down the line, and I'm like,
right. I mean, if you really want to go like sort of chicken or the egg, sort of philosophical kind of stuff, the first comics were kind of like the cave paintings on walls, right? You have a series of images that try to, you know, tell a small story of a hunt or of a gathering or the people or whatever else, right? And so like that you want to get back to, you know, the roots, so to speak. You know, the idea of using art and drawings to tell a story is as old as humanity, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Hieroglyphics, cave paintings, scrolls, all these things, you know.
No, I like that. That's totally true. Yep.
That's why I think it resonates, and that's why I think it, you know, is one of the art forms that, you know, growing up as kids is just kind of like, oh, yeah, this is such a simple, straightforward. We all seem to be able to get it.
So you think it's something that speaks to everyone on a deeper level, because it's like, it's almost like muscle memory from
it is
cave days. Yeah.
So there's this literally just happened the other day. I was my nephew was over. My nephew is a hyperactive kid. He does not. He will, if there's something to say, he will constantly be saying it. He's the kid that asks why and where and when, and you know, will describe everything to you because he feels he needs to. Right.
I like that.
Which is great, you know. Do you remember this? It was a Marvel set of books. It was called Nuff Said. It was basically silent comics. It was basically silent comics. It was a series of books, Spider-Man and Daredevil and a few other ones, where they basically told a story without words or with words at a minimum. And so
So
I have the graphic novel.
I know a few that were like that, but I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
realize
yeah.
that was a series.
Yeah, they collected into a graphic novel that maybe, or they tried to do a series, a small series of them.
Okay.
But anyway, he was over at my place. I was like, and he was, being himself. And I was like, you know what? Let me give. I gave him this book. I just didn't preface it at all, and he just went silent. He was looking through every page. There was no words for him. He can't read yet fully.
Yeah.
And so, but he was enthralled. So I think there is something, just like you put a series of images. You put
Yep.
3 images, right? I mean, that's basically the crux of most jokes or storytelling: 2 beats and a punchline,
Right.
right? And you get 3 images together, and we begin to put meaning and semblance and direction and a story behind that, right?
Yeah. Hey, just so you know, you need to take the little due to technical difficulties note off of the Paint Bros page.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll just do that now.
Yeah.
You speak and keep
Um,
everyone else.
yeah. It's all good. So yeah, the I don't know. I'm yeah. For some reason, my light is blowing out my image here. Let's see if I can adjust it for everybody. See if that looks a little bit better, less blown out. There we go. Got to work on that a little bit. Samantha, it's never occurred to me that you guys might get books before publishing to be able to read to develop a cover, or do they just tell you what they want? That's a good question. So it's 50-50. A lot of times with book covers, whenever I've done them, I've either gotten snippets of the book before it comes out, or I've gotten chapters, or I've gotten a synopsis. It varies depending upon what it is. Um, so yeah, they different publishers do different things. Sometimes they give you the whole story and then you know kind of go from there, but it doesn't always work out that way. Ryan says, "Hey guys, love seeing the more finished boba piece. Love it." Ah, thank you. It's getting there. It's funny on the image that I'm seeing with that you all are seeing. You see what the delay is. Yeah, on the image that you guys are seeing, it's a little more. It's like way warmer on this side than like this is like pure white right here, but I guess where your image is, it seems a lot more yellow. Um, Everything seems a lot warmer in the image for some reason. Maybe I can adjust that because this light has a filter setting. Let's see if I have it on.
Are you talking about me or you?
No, me.
I can try to adjust that on my side. I know.
No, I have a
leave it
dimmer,
still.
and then I also have. There we go. That's
Whoa.
I can warm the light, or I can. I think
Well,
that is white light right there. This is either white or blue light. I'm not sure, but I like this a little bit better.
Yeah, I got
We'll
some
see
blue
how that
light.
affects thing. We'll see how that affects things in the image. I'm trying to get this hot spot to be the pure white that it actually is, and not as yellow.
That's always a challenge, though. Sometimes, like they're
No, it is. It is.
like pieces when you're at a convention and that light is just beating down in the wrong way. You're like, some of your
Oh,
stuff
I know.
just looks weird.
Yeah, the worst is when you get back from a con and you if you were lucky enough to either get a scan of an image beforehand or something like that, it's like, man, I painted this in the worst light. Like it messed up all the colors don't look the way that I
Yeah,
was seeing them in my head. Yeah.
right. Because we'll be painting and the light will be incredibly blue, and you just naturally adapt to it. And you're like, nope, this is what I want to look like. And then someone takes it home, and the light is more natural or warming or in the sun. You're like, whoa, that's That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I've stayed away from Star Wars fan art because of Disney. Is that not an issue? Actually, no.
I mean, I don't. I do stuff for Lucasfilm, so
Yes. So Dan actually does work for for Star Wars
for the
on a
man.
certain level, but he's painted stuff before he got that job with Star Wars. So
Yeah. I mean, this might. I doubt this is going to turn into anything. This started off as an educational piece, so I'm not really, you know. A lot of times when we do stuff that's for some sort of a live event like this, it's not necessarily work. Like this isn't work right now. I'm in approval mode, which is where I've sent everything to my editors, and now I'm awaiting approval. And while I'm doing that, I'm mostly working on commission work that I owe people. Uh, I have 3 or 4 pieces that are off to the side. Unfortunately, almost everything I'm working on for commissioners
yeah.
is huge. Like way big. Like this is
Wow.
12 by 16, and it doesn't even fit in the image that you guys are seeing. And the pieces that I'm working on are 16 by 20 or larger, and those are all like they go way off the page, and like
That's
you would
crazy, bro.
only see like you would see a tiny corner of the image because my camera doesn't zoom out enough, and unfortunately it won't really appear as much. um, so
But actually, you asked me a question before, and I think I segued into something else. But what's my favorite form of storytelling or something like that?
right.
Um, I think there's. I am really impressed when video games
Uh-huh.
come up with sort of interactive storytelling or something to that end. I don't know how you want to define it. Um,
Yeah.
but there are some being able to feel like you're taking a part, taking a role in the storytelling. I think is really cool, rather
Yeah.
than an outside observer. And there are some. I don't really get a chance to play games like that anymore. I try to stay away from them because then I just get addicted and just kind of keep wanting to playing, and I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
Like there's like Ender Rings and like all these other Dragon Scrolls and stuff like that. I've just
Yeah.
kind of stayed away from. But the games that I have played like that are just, I think, a
So
crazy endeavor of storytelling to accommodate branches to kind of bring it back in, but there's still a unified theme and story. Not the ones that are completely open,
yeah.
but the ones that have a path for you to take small divergent paths away, little away from. I think
Right.
those are really cool, and having a role to play in that is
The
a fun form.
the thing that I'm doing for a novelist right now, she actually started off as a game writer. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize that that was actually her beginnings were writing for a very popular video game series, and she kind of transitioned from a PC gaming series
Oh wow.
into writing novels. And it had, she did it for a number of years though, and um, it's interesting how much cross pollination in certain types of media there are.
Hmm.
Like I feel like every comic book writer wants to do film. Like
Yeah,
when it gets down to it, when they see their stuff on film, it's like, okay,
I've made it.
arrived,
Yeah.
finally. Um, and wow, that sounded really bitchy the way I said it, but that's not what I actually meant. But it always amuses me though that they always think that that's like the end all and be all because of the money aspect, most likely,
Right.
which I get. everybody wants more comfort.
No, of course. It's
Yeah.
it's also a like comic writers to begin with don't get paid much. it,
No, no. I think that they toil so often and for so long, and it's very thankless. And
it is a horribly
when you
thankless
see
job.
that sort of money flowing, you're like, yeah, I want to get some of that.
Right,
Because
right. So it's sort of the you know it's the level where they're like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about finances at
yeah,
this point if I can get to that level.
yeah,
Um,
I get that.
you know.
What is what are some of the storytelling techniques? I feel like we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's lots of things that go into when you're doing sequential storytelling. You have things like juxtaposition. You have techniques that only exist in print form, like
Right.
the page turn, the reveal.
Yes.
You only, like, every page, when you turn that page, you have a reveal where you get a chance to introduce the viewer to something that they will only see when they turn that
For the
page.
first time.
Like
Right.
that, yeah, that's where they get to see it initially, and you get to really kind of hammer home any sort of, like, big ta-da moment every time you turn a page. So the more pages you have, the more ta-da moments you have. So you get to surprise your viewer, unlike, I don't think there's any other medium that kind of does something like that.
No, it's the jump scare, right?
Yeah,
Effectively.
exactly. Yep.
You only get to be jump scared once.
Yes, yes. Oh, well, that's the thing. If you do it too much in film, then it's
Right.
like,
Then it's no
okay,
longer
it
then the
loses
person
its
expecting
effect.
it. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the same thing. I remember what was it was one of like the Death of Superman or something like that, where the whole
Well,
22 pages was just was just like was just single panel pages, right? It was just like one big
oh yeah.
one big shot after another. I'm like, well, that just kind of like you lose it.
So, and it's interesting that you're saying that. So one of my absolute favorite stories was the two things that you've mentioned. It was both silent, with the exception of sound effect sounds,
Yeah.
and it was both silent, and it was also every panel was a full page spread,
Oh, really?
or a double page spread. Yeah,
Oh.
it was amazing. It was the fight between Fin Fang Foom and Thor, and it was done by Walt Simonson, and it was like
Oh.
one of the most epic comics. Like, I just remember, like when I bought the issue, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's literally like every page is a pinup. And I'm gonna pull up some of the images for people just so they see what we're talking about. Uh, Thor. Or actually, I'll call it Midgard Serpent, because that's really what it was. Yeah, it was their Ragnarok episode, or Ragnarok movie, or comic. Yep, that's the comic right there.
Let's see.
For those, hold on, I don't know why. I hate Google now. With a fiery passion. And I'm wrong. They did use text. I'm gonna try and get the versions before they recolored them, like, I don't know what. No, that's the thing that they've been doing.
Everything
now with a lot
nowadays
of
needs to be
Marvel.
remastered. You
Yeah,
know?
and I hate the recoloring that they're doing. It's like, I actually really like the old stuff. The comic was easily one of my absolute favorite comics, and I think I read it so much that I just destroyed the poor thing. I ended up having to go and buying a back issue of it recently, and it was really hard to find. It wasn't like one that was, because now everybody wanted the new one. All right, so here we go.
Ironically, talking about the Death of Superman pages, the Death of Superman pages were auctioned off today, says Brewmaster Holston.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So this is 2 full pages.
Oh, nice.
And every page is a full page spread, but it tells a story with every single page turn. You have a reveal, and it made this story feel so epic. Like every time you turned the page, you were just like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!"
Yeah.
And I love the way his design of the Midgard serpent was so just like look, it goes off into the distance in the middle,
So
like it goes everywhere. Yeah.
so here's the thing, and maybe it's also the recollection that I have with, because we're kind of talking about two things that are very similar in terms of the pinups in both,
Yeah.
right? And in looking at that, the design of each of those pinup pages, along with the word balloons, like makes your eye travel around the page, right?
You're right.
It breaks it up into its own little mini panels, right? It's like Spider-Man. You have a pinup, and you have the shadow images of Spider-Man hopping through the pinup shot, but he's saying something different. Your eye pauses, and those are like different panels, even though they're not. I feel like my recollection of that Death of Superman pinups was that it wasn't that. It was just maybe like 2-word balloons on a page or something really short and simple on most of them. They weren't moving your eyes around or weren't considering that and really the thing. They were just like, oh yeah, it's just 22 panels, and then we're just going to make them really big. But like what you were showing me there with the dragon thing was really, really cool. I love that.
Yeah. No, it was, I loved it. Like the other thing that you have with comic book storytelling is kind of like what you're describing with the word balloons being, it's leading the viewer in a visual sort of like, let's take this page, for instance. It's something that you can only do in comic book storytelling.
Yes.
So this page, you have to start off here.
Right.
Then you go to this one, and it's taking you with the path of the dragon.
Right. And then hooking you back left.
You're literally following the dragon, and then suddenly you're back over here, and then you're coming and seeing how long and far the dragon goes into the background. It literally is leading your eye throughout the whole page. And same thing with this. You're watching the dragon screaming in the distance. Arguably, I go to the sound effect before I go here.
Right.
And then you go here. Then you go back down here to Thor as you travel down the body of the dragon.
Yeah. No, like that's definitely a storytelling. Even that page right there, that double page spread.
Yeah.
Like, it's bringing you around, and there are different panels and focuses that your eyes will look at.
You're constantly seeing the parts of the dragon into the background to show just how big and massive the scale of this thing is, because he's like Simonson is constantly trying to illustrate just how big and insurmountable this creature is. It's so funny because like this is one of the oldest, now that page would be so much more detailed, and I was like, you know what, it doesn't need it.
No, it doesn't have to be.
No.
All these things that we all the extra colors, all the extra special effects, when it comes to storytelling, when you boil it down, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's funny.
You don't need it all.
That's something that comics gets. They nail that because it's they try and do it's the economy of it.
Right.
That's part of the whole love of comic books is they're trying to tell that story without. They give you enough information to be able to read it, but you don't necessarily have to make all the details, because then your eyes would get lost in the details.
Right.
And you would lose the like while it would be beautiful to look at, it wouldn't flow the same way. It wouldn't move the same way as you're reading it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the marriage of text and image, not just,
Mm-hmm.
one or the other. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Yeah, I agree.
I'm in the comic purist sort of camp for the most part, because I kind of started in comics.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think I ever want to really illustrate comics. Like, I don't mind doing a graphic novel here and there, but I don't think
Right.
I ever want to be that guy that illustrates comics on the regular.
The month,
It's a grueling.
the 10 comics a year, 10, 11 comics a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, that could you imagine that? Like,
It's
like you
it's
realize
a
that that's
grind.
10 or 20 comics a year means that you're illustrating 20 pages or 22 pages or
Yeah.
24 pages, depending upon the publisher,
Right.
on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
like a ton of work. I don't even know what that breaks down to in a panel. I mean, probably if you broke up all the panels on a page, you're doing probably, I mean, most pages have between roughly 5 panels per
Yeah.
page
I was about to say 4 to
on
6.
average.
4 to 6 was.
Yeah, five is the average. So 5 at 20. So you've got right there 100 panels per comic, give or take, and so it's 1,200 drawings that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
over the course of a year to do comics. And
You get pretty good at it after a year.
yeah, that's true. It's true. Crazy practice, but
Yeah.
yeah. What I like to do is, when I'm doing storytelling, especially with single images, I
Right.
like to tell us. I like your eye. I like to train where your eye is going to go at any given time. Like right now, I want your eye to be right smack dab on the Rancor. I want you to look at its face, to look at its roar, its hunch. I want you to really kind of, I made this hot spot right here, so your eye goes right there. And arguably the hottest spot is right where Boba Fett's foot is, because I want your eye to go up to Boba Fett's face.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to be like, dude's riding a Rancor, man. It's like, I want you to go there.
Yeah.
I want you to you put a background in there that, gives you a setting. Like when it doesn't have a setting, it always feels empty to me. I hate, one of the things I hate the most about convention art is that it's usually a character with no background at all.
Right. Because that's extra.
Well, that's the thing. People are typically asking for the character, and
Right.
you can get away with just giving them that. And the thing I hate about that is it doesn't tell a story. It doesn't
Right.
like it. You can do more with it.
Yeah.
Um,
I always feel like you need at least 2 elements, 3 really, to really get to really in a single piece to get a story out of it, right? Because you can draw Batman and generic, okay, cool. Maybe he's looking off to the left, and you're like, okay, what's he looking at? And you can gain something from that, right? His expression or whatever else, But you
Yeah.
put a Tyrannosaurus Rex behind him and a giant penny, and you're like, all of a sudden becomes like, where did those come from? What are those things related to this guy, this character?
Right.
Like for instance, in that Boba Fett one that you're doing,
Right.
If there was a ship in the background that you decide to put in, not that you need one
Right.
in that piece because it's beautiful, but if you put a ship in the background, like, oh, is that ship on Boba Fett's side? Is it coming at him?
Right.
Like, what's going on?
It
There's a moment
raises
of tension.
questions that-
It raises
Yeah.
questions, and that's really what storytelling in a single image is like. You want to raise some of these questions, and you do it by providing a physical expression, because we relate so well to the human face, and we'll instantly try to figure out, like,
totally.
oh, he looks very concerned. What's he concerned about?
Yep.
But if you don't have an expression, and you don't have anything else, and you just have a single like standard figure, there's very little for us to draw on. So, and I always go back to sort of the crux of a joke, right? Which is one beat, and then break expectations. So I always feel like you need like two or three things to kind of set the tone, then something else.
Yeah, you need to put people on their keister, not keep them. You want to keep them on the hook, but you don't want to,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I got you. So other things, other storytelling techniques. Let's talk about not comics,
Yeah.
and go into I don't know which one. What do you want to go into now?
How about anyone else that's watching us? What are some of your favorite storytelling moments or something like that? I mean, there's so many we can. Um, like, oh, thank you, Full Shamart, for subscribing. We had a 37 months in a row.
Oh,
And Fulsham is he's also an artist, and he does this like fantasy pirate comic.
oh,
For
nice.
some reason, I feel like it's that. I can't remember. But he's like, "Am I crazy for wanting to draw 10 comics in a year or more?" Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yes, yes, entirely. Yeah. No, I mean I understand why everybody wants to do it. I mean I I was there. I used to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not poo-pooing anybody doing it either.
No, 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 no. My
um,
no, not.
not even in the least. Like I
Yeah.
don't think that
It's
it's a bad thing
impressive
that
to us
someone
for
wants
those
to
who
do it.
can. It's more.
I have friends. Yeah, my buddy Declan Shavi. He just posted himself at the premiere of Moon Knight,
Oh,
and
nice.
his version of Moon Knight is one of the ones that they have there.
Mm,
And I was like, that's got to be so gratifying to see
yeah,
your character literally come to life, like the thing you kind of cooked up
yeah,
on the big screen, or on TV and whatever. It's just kind of awesome, to see it in live action. Like every time, the first time something I illustrated or came up with, I had cosplayers cosplaying my costumes that I designed. I was like floored. I mean, I literally was speechless. I had no idea what to say. It was unlike any, like I did not, I was dumbfounded.
right.
Um, I really was like, I mean,
That's
because I was
awesome.
like, I didn't even know anybody would even read that. And the fact that your entire family made costumes around this, like, blew
Hmm.
my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
That's awesome.
And I had no idea how to even approach, like, responding. Like, it was so bad that I just remember Heather at the time, like, looking over and being like elbowing me, like, dude, because I didn't even know how to like. I was like,
Wake up! Like, say
I
something.
was speechless, absolutely speechless. Um, so I mean, I can understand why anyone would want to go down that road and that path and
Yeah.
do, you know, comics are very cool.
It also has a
Uh,
certain sense of like you can achieve it, right? It's something that like a
it's
movie
possible.
is
Yeah.
possible, right? Like a movie, like you creating a movie, like oh my god, the resources that go around that to even try to put something together that we can all imagine, like sci-fi to you want to do a movie of two people in a in a coffee shop, like sure, I guess that's possible. Um, but to fully stretch that imagination, or to make a video game, like all these things are just not within the realm of possibility. But you say, hey, I can put out a comic. Like kids in first grade put out comics, right?
Yeah.
So
Anyone
I
can
think
do
that's
it.
the other thing. It's just like it's so
Yeah.
accessible, and I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
No, it's something that everyone can do, and I mean, we all illustrate. I would say the first time I ever did was probably in high school, and I was like making little stories. As you
Right?
remember how you would like make little flip books at the bottom corner of your
Yep.
pages.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that that's basically the first version of a comic that a lot
Oh yeah.
of comic artists, like, that's kind of where they start.
Uh huh.
Um, and you get that bug, and you're like, hey. that was actually really fun. I'm gonna do it
Yeah,
again.
and it looks kind of cool, and your friends like it, and everything else.
Oh,
And you're
they
like,
geek
oh,
out
let's
over
keep
it.
doing
Yeah,
it. I mean,
yeah.
I think that has so much to do with it too, like the sort of immediate response that you can get from some of these
The
things.
gratification.
Yeah, the gratification, the
The
likes,
instant
you know.
gratification. Yeah.
Um,
I like that it also doesn't require the same like level of uh, like film requires a lot of investment
it
um,
does.
from a monetary standpoint, and with comics, there's very little that you act. I mean, in the
Yeah,
grand scheme of things, that you have to invest in to create a comic. In fact, if you do it like as long as you have a computer, you can pretty much make one
right.
online without almost any tools at all.
Yeah.
Um, and so many people are kind of going down that road now digitally.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. You need a pencil and a scanner and a computer.
and you
Done.
don't even need a scanner technically.
True.
That's the thing. You don't have to. You don't have to show people. That's the other thing that's beautiful about it. You don't actually have to.
Right. You can make something just for yourself or for your small limited.
Yeah.
Um, but, what are some of? Do you have like a favorite
One of my
storyline or something that like inspired you to get into comics and all that
um
stuff?
my it's kind of funny. I that Walt Simonson issue was definitely one of my favorites. I have others that have been huge, like that I was just. Do you remember there was an issue called Snowblind of Alpha Flight? I don't know if you
Yes,
remember that one.
I
It's
think
where
so.
a character basically becomes snowblind, and you
It sounds so
the
familiar.
entire story is told in like total white space, which means no borders, no like panels
Oh,
went away. It was
oh, that's so
really
cool.
crazy, and my favorite types of comics are the ones where that type of storytelling, like kind of like it's like they kind of take the storytelling aspects and turn it on its ear. There was also a Fantastic Four issue that was, instead of it being a comic that you turn the pages like this, you turn the entire book sideways, and it was a sideways comic that
Hmm.
you turned vertical.
Hmm.
And it was an issue of Fantastic Four that was like a widescreen version. Um, like I love that kind of stuff where it's like, okay, this is the way we've trained you to do it, and now let's see what happens when we give it to you this way. And it's like, you're kind of playing with the viewers and the readers a little bit. I like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I like when there's experimentation like that. One of my favorite recent comics that's come out that I absolutely loved from a storytelling standpoint was the serialized Wednesday comics. And I bought every single like paper. I still have the like old school newsprint versions that they had. Like those were some of my absolute favorite comics that have come out in recent memory. Um, and it was just really cool to see, Paul Pope in pulp, like actual pulp. And it was the newsprint. You open it up like a newspaper and you read it like a funny papers kind of comic,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like entire pages of it, and it was so gorgeous. Um,
That's one of the things that when I first read like Kabuki and like
oh yeah,
David Mack,
well,
like
see, and yeah, Kabuki was great. David
yeah,
Mack did an amazing job with it.
yeah, and just like the words, we were talking earlier about the word balloons and the art and how they merge and can work with each other to create an experience that is greater, right?
Yeah, that's more.
Than any one of them alone. And I think that was one of the things that I got from like trying to read Kabuki. If anyone like literally has tried to read it, it takes an effort because you're rotating your
Yeah.
book. You're following one path of consciousness, and you have to go back a page and follow the other path of consciousness. Otherwise, you might get
Yeah.
a little lost. And it is one of those, like you said, like is completely different from the process.
So I really like Kabuki, but I feel like Kabuki took a lot from Sandman.
Yes,
Like I feel like
I read Kabuki before I read Sandman. So, but yeah,
I
I
see.
know what you're
I see.
saying. Yeah.
I feel like he was in some ways kind of standing on the shoulders of
Oh,
Gaiman with
absolutely.
his storytelling.
I mean, some of
And
that
now
is
that
also
it's
from.
awesome to see them working together now on
Mhm,
things, which is really cool.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that I can't remember it. Um, uh, Sienkiewicz did some stuff for Daredevil and Kingpin. That some of that stuff
Oh
is
yeah,
very much
yep,
on, some of the shoulders that David Mack was standing on. Um,
yeah. Steranko,
yeah, that's the other
his
one,
Nick,
Steranko. Yes, I was like
yeah,
Steranko
his
in the
Nick
second.
Fury,
Yes.
Agent of Shield, was one of the most amazing. Like his Steranko's stuff was just unbelievable back when.
Yeah,
Um,
back when he
I'm
was
not
doing
saying that
stuff in the
he's
'70s, rotating the panels,
yeah,
breaking panels up that were single panel into multiple panels, and just kind of breaking it. Like he was
yeah.
definitely. Yes, those are the
You
shoulders.
should definitely like, but the thing that I loved is he sort of took juxtaposition to another level. Like he was doing, I just remember this like really sexy scene with, and it was another silent one where it was all done with the juxtaposition of objects in a room, and
Oh,
the storytelling was showing that Nick Fury was having a liaison with someone,
okay.
and the way that he illustrated or told that story was in like you saw the negligee on the bed, you saw a shoe here, you saw, and it was panels just showing all of these objects, and as you read through each object you were like, oh, hey, Nick Fury. Quickly you're coming to the realization of what's going down just reading through each thing. And it was really, he was the first one that I remember reading through stuff like that thinking like, wow, that is genius storytelling. Like
Right.
it was next level. um, that was a long time ago that I'm trying to remember the first time that I got introduced to Steranko, and I think that was actually the very first time I read anything that he had done, and I was
Yeah.
just dumbfounded. I was like, this guy's a genius.
I am jumping in late, but have you talked about or did anyone mention the issue of Fraction's Hawkeye, told from the perspective of Lucky the pizza
Nope.
dog?
I have not, and that's another really good
Yeah.
example.
All the thought
Yeah, I
bubbles were
mean,
pictographs.
yep, exactly. Like everything, yeah, and that's, see, I love that kind of storytelling where it's like
Yeah.
it's so different and so like it's like something you haven't seen before, and when it happens, you're just like, who comes up with this?
Right.
Like, it's genius. Yeah.
There's it, another set of storytelling that I thought was pretty cool was actually sort of an homage to like the Silver Age. I think it was Andy Kubert,
Oh yeah.
and uh, he started doing 4 panels per page and locked
Oh
in. It was
okay.
just he just quartered it, cut it in half and half, and,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's how he told the story for the majority of the issues. And he still does this, I think, to a certain extent. He's just like, yeah, I don't want to think about it, and I just do this. But he does think about it in the fact that sometimes he'll break that rule, and all of a sudden it's one panel all the way across the top, or one of those
And
panels
see,
is
when
broken
you
up in two, and it's
and
very
when you do make those rule breaks,
yes,
like readers take note. Like it's
it
something
does
where it's like, if you want to drive home a subject or a
right.
topic, do that kind of rule breaking, because then it's like they immediately are like, whoa, okay, that happened, and you're suddenly like taking more note of something that would normally just kind of go, it's mundane and you wouldn't even give it two thoughts.
Yeah, yeah, because he would set you up into this just pattern of
Yeah.
ordered pages effectively. Panel one, panel two, panel three, panel four, panel one, panel two, panel three, panel four, panel one, panel two, panel three, four, five. You know,
I don't know if you can hear the rain here
I
over the
cannot.
mic, but it's like crazy torrential
Really.
downpour. It just started up, so if my audio is a little funky, it's yeah.
Yeah, less cool Nader Tot brings up Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
love the what
as
was in
a
Hobbes' head and what was the
yeah,
back
as a
and forth
storytelling.
between the imagination and the reality.
Uh,
That's something that I like. I've wanted to explore that like really badly. I've had all these ideas about, and then suddenly there was an artist that posted a bunch of very similar images, and I was like, well, I can't do that now because I feel like I would be aping that person. But
yeah,
there was a series of images where it showed on one side of the image were kids playing with each other, and then in the like halfway through the image changed, and you realize that the kids aren't jumping over stones or from stone to stone, they're jumping over lava pits,
yeah,
and it's like the floor is lava, and
yeah,
you're just like, oh
yeah,
my gosh, it's so cool. And I wanted to explore something like that, and I kept seeing other people doing such a great job with
hmm
that concept, so it was like,
yeah. Like I vaguely remember something similar where where a kid had a strainer on his head, right, and his shadow
mm,
was like Captain America or something like that. I don't know.
the floor.
But the difference in style that he was able to achieve with Calvin and Hobbes too, when he has Spaceman Spiff, it was one style, and
Yeah.
then when he when he switched realities back to normal, it was like a back to normal. I'll have to tell you a. I had an idea for the comic that I am working on that kind of borrows a lot from um, some of the concepts that we were talking about, and I just need to execute it. It's a little bit of ways in my story where I can um, do something, achieve this thing that I want to do. But again, it's like taking you look at the crux of the medium that you're using, right? You got the page turn, you got the you got the setting up a repetition, you got the marriage of word balloons and art, and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
it's a physical action and turning the page and all these other things. Like, how do you think about it nowadays? Um, so, but we'll
Yeah.
talk about that afterwards.
Yeah. The other thing that's I guess I guess other aspects of storytelling that you have to think about are setting up, like foreshadowing,
Yep.
things of that nature. And you can do that in images too by putting stuff in the background that you're
Mm-hmm.
coming up to. You can do things like with the perspective. Like, I love whenever in one image you can show, like, if you want to tell a story about something insurmountable or something super overwhelming, make the perspective a low angle one so that
Right.
you're looking up at something that just is so daunting. um, when you do it the other way, it can also have the same effect, but it takes the viewer out of being first person. It
Right.
becomes more of a voyeur, and you're now looking down at someone who's in that situation. um, so there's different things like perspective can add to the storytelling.
Oh, for sure. And colors add to the storytelling as well. Those are other
Oh yeah.
tools that we have, right? What you
They
choose to
can.
color and what you don't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything from saturation to the standard emotional color theory about what certain colors mean, reds and
Yep.
blues and stuff like that. That can really impact um, work with your subject matter. If it makes sense. Um,
I feel like I could massage this piece to death, and I just want to be done. you ever have that?
Oh, we are just at about 70 minutes, I believe.
Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I can
Yeah.
throw up some storytelling stuff that I've done.
We
But,
can share some pieces.
have a bunch of it queued up here. Oh, there it is. I was like, wait a second, where did that go? So yeah, stuff from Tuskers. So this was a 2-page spread.
Nice.
I was trying to, we did a, you know, something where we wanted to show the jarring sort of, we wanted the viewer to be very jarred by the actions that were taking place. So you kind of are following along with this really cute little baby elephant, and you have that tender moment. And you know, he keeps running back to his mama, and all the while in the distance you have a hunter that's been taking aim, and starts off the this massacre, and the whole time you're seeing it through the eyes. Everything becomes more jumbled and hard to read because you're seeing it all through the eyes of a baby elephant. And you know, your last image is sort of the horror. Trying to show you another one. I of course picked the most gruesome scene.
Aww.
So now I'll play off of that with the more tender scenes. These are tough ones to convey, like the relationship that, you know, the kind of awkward, not really accepting a new elephant into the herd, and how you know, the characters are trying to let it play out. All the while watching the, you know, the mama shove and push, and a lot of this is done with sound effects over top. But as the illustrator, you're trying to give emotion to things that, you know, it's like, how does an elephant smile? How does an elephant? A lot of that is going to be, you know, how do you, the ears being forward, you know, these are all little things that you have to kind of take into account whenever you're doing any sort of a graphic novel.
And some of it's anthropomorphization, right? Is adding human traits into the animals that may or may not be there.
Another technique in storytelling that I like to do is I do thumbnails like this. Highly necessary in my opinion, just for blocking out where dialogue will go, and also making sure you account for dialogue and how much there's going to be. You also need to make sure that things are going to read from a silhouette standpoint. In other words, you want the person to be able to quickly read through the image and not get stuck anywhere. And a lot of times you can figure that out small before you actually put it down on the page. So that's what my thumbnails look kind of rough like that.
Yeah, I'm going to put some stuff up. Let's see if I can.
What you got?
Yeah, I'm trying to show my screen, but it's not updating my desktop capture. I'm trying to show my. Give me a second to figure this out.
Tony's power went out.
Yeah, my power went out. There.
All good?
Yes. I'm switching to. I am. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to show this on those of you watching on Twitch, so you'll hear me talking about things that are not showing up on Twitch. Um, we'll overlay this piece. Uh, we were talking about like background and hinting at things
Yeah.
and distance and having a few different objects, right? To kind of go along and have this Hydra in the background. I didn't have to really draw it. Really, just like the silhouette of it is enough to kind of
Right.
and pose of
Which also conveys something else just by making it a silhouette instead of putting detail in there.
right. It's like huge in the background or something like that. So
Yeah.
there's always stuff like that we can do. And I actually wanted to show. Let's see. I can't show that. I was gonna show some of the pencils and things like that I've done for my book. So open those.
Dig it.
Does anyone say anything on chat? I have my chat hidden right now because I'm moving things
Oh, I know.
around.
Let's switch over to it up on focused on the paint. Cynthia says jumping in late. Have you talked about the image? Oh no.
So much. So many files. So I'll bring a little bit of insight into my my current process. Overlay that there. So for me, Dan shows some of his process and stuff like that. I do a lot of my sketching and penciling on using Clip Studio, and then as I finish certain pieces, I'll place them in, and here I am kind of exploring an idea. Just,
So you do those separately and then piece them together?
Yeah, I lay them out in the Clip Studio. So like they're individual.
Is that your weapon of choice for comics?
Right now, Clip Studio is to a certain extent just because it has a lot of very specific tools for creating comics. You know, they have tools just for frames and borders. It's very easy to do word balloons in here because there's there's a word balloon tool, right?
Yeah. No, I know.
And so,
for those that don't know, Clip Studio has become kind of the almost like the default application that comic illustrators tend to be using these days. It used to be Photoshop for a long time, and now it's definitely kind of gone the way of the dodo because of the as Tony's mentioning, all of the little built-in tools that are available that are specific for comic storytelling.
Even in terms of like Photoshop will have the pre-built sizes. Like, oh, do you want to go A1, A2, A3, A4 size? You know, common print standard sizes. But then Clip Studio will have, do you want to do a Webtoons standard size? And I'm like, oh, okay. You know?
It's like, that's exactly what I want. So,
that's exactly what I want. I don't need to look it up because it was like, okay, I confirmed it once, it was there. But this is, you were talking about something before about storytelling in comics where the page flip. There was a turn to things. And one of the things I'm trying to do, since my comic is, you know, on your phone or on your tablet, is to take advantage and to think about things like how you're scrolling through the story.
Right.
And to have elements like bullets falling, right? And this is where I think like watercolor makes sense for a lot of this because it drips down. You get to use drips to like lead you into one or the other. But here's where, you know,
that's definitely something that I think David Mack did really well with a lot of his, because he used mixed media for a lot of the kabuki stuff. And it was interesting to see how the paint and the materials almost informed the storytelling.
Right, yeah. Like he would follow a drip down and there would be a word balloon next to it or something like that, you know.
Right.
But yeah, so like I'll have pieces like this where, okay, I have to do a panel, and I'll group them together where I've sketched it on my Cintiq, and then I'll just have to translate that later on. I have a placeholder. So I can go through my story, make sure my story is there, it kind of makes sense. I paint whatever needs to be painted.
I just totally messed up something.
Don't worry, I'm covering it. But yeah, like keeping in mind like what your medium is, right? The jump scares that have audio to it, that music. To like page turn or to the scroll in my case if you're doing a webtoon or something like that.
Yeah.
A really good use of perspective is in One Punch Man. Question for both artists. which is more challenging, doing a story using no words or doing a story with a limited color palette? You want to take this one, Dan?
In my opinion, probably the. Oh, that's a tough one.
Because you've done a
I
story
like
with a limited
I've
color
done
palette.
both. Yeah, I've done both.
You've done both.
I don't know if it's really one or the other is more. I think each story can be challenging. Like every story we do is a little different. So I don't really think it's I don't think it's a valid comparison. Um,
I
I
think
think
those are
the
really.
toughest. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, I think those restrictions that you may or may not impose on yourself for, on one hand seem restrictive,
But they actually help.
they actually
Like
help. They help you
yeah,
focus.
like sometimes limited palette. Like look at Frank Miller's stuff and look
Yeah.
at what he did for like 300.
Yeah.
That hit color or Sin City even that hit color of red.
Yeah.
It's a black and white, stark black and white is the entire book, and then you have a hit color of red. So when you see that red, I mean, it does something like he can literally like make an entire page red with one little white thing, and it just
Hmm.
changes it evokes something so much more intense than just the black and white images that were already super intense.
Right.
Um, so it gives you like another tool in your arsenal, and it's less of a hindrance with the limited palette, in my opinion. It makes things easier in a way. You don't have to think about all the other colors or think about how the colors harmonize because you only have three colors to really worry about. Um, you're
And I
thinking
think
more about light and shadow.
as well, it forces you to find new solutions or
Yeah,
interesting um, uh, methodologies or mechanisms to solve. Your orange is not just. It started off as like, oh, I'm just gonna use it for like the sky or whatever you focus on, but then you're like, oh, maybe if I do it on everything else, but leave what I want them to focus on, not orange. That could be cool, and you come up with new strategies that you may not have thought of because you invoked or you chose to stick with some restrictions on things. So
usually
yeah.
limited palettes. I mean, I think really carefully whenever I use them. Like I used one specifically for Tuskers, and it was very purposeful. We did it. We wanted something to. We didn't want the storytelling to be bogged down by visuals that were super rich and vibrant. Like if they were totally fully rendered, the story wouldn't read the same way.
Right.
Um, we also wanted, to be able to have a hit color that really made you think about a particular image
Right.
whenever we illustrated it a certain
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Um, so it was
It would
all
be
very
a
purposeful.
yeah. It would be a totally different story if it was like red, right? Like it would be
Yeah.
like, oh my god. Or if it was blue, like those
Yeah.
would be like it would change the sort of feel that you were able to achieve with them.
Yeah, that stuff is almost always very intentional. Um, Listen, I think we've hit the zenith
Yeah.
of our time, right?
Let me check. We have on 12:15. Search about 12:10. It is now 1:40. So yeah, we've gone about 90 minutes.
Cool.
It's our episode.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
thank
have
you for
any questions or anything?
yeah. Any
Shoot 'em
last
down
minute
below.
questions? Put them in the comments. Help us out. Like and subscribe, share, tell your friends, family, grandmother, you know, about our
Tell your
little
mama, tell your papa.
stream. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We have a few topics to choose from, and so we'll get back to you on that shortly. But probably around the same time. Is this looking good for you next week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably around the same time.
Barring my redonkulous workload.
Yeah. But we will see you soon. Thank you. Make sure you follow Dan Govar at Instagram at Dan Govar.
Daniel Govar. Just Daniel Govar, actually.
Daniel Govar.
And Tony Moy Art, correct?
Yes. No, Tony_Moy.
Underscore. I keep forgetting the underscore every time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and until next week.
Yep. See you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.